Hey y'all, I just wanted to make a short video just talking about this. I don't know how long this is going to be. Um, but one of the things, and I'm speaking to ministers across the board, spiritual people, leaders, preachers, pastors, all of that stuff, right? You have to understand that we are in a different age altogether. And that requires a different grace and a different methodology when it comes to producing results, preaching, evaluating yourselves, what you're doing. Everything is changed, whether you want it to have changed or not. It already did it. And this is what I'm talking about. We are in an age of information. This means that for the first time in forever, right? Information is readily available, meaning that you can research, fact check, and do a deep dive. What would have before taking you years of college study now takes you a few minutes of doing some bare minimum research. You can get an educated answer. Whether that educated answer is 100% right or wrong, that's a different topic, but you can get an educated answer, meaning an answer that's based on logic, that's based on facts, that has a reasonable train of thought behind it. You can get that pretty quick. And a lot of preachers, a lot of teachers are having a hard time adjusting to that because why, right? Not only did information become readily available, but fact checking became the standard. The culture shifted with the information, and that's what a lot of leaders have been battling. Now, the integrity of a leader should be that we always stand for truth. It's okay, right? I've been very transparent. There are things that I believed a decade ago when I first started my journey that I now know are completely false, even though I would have died for that 10 years ago. That's fine, right? That's the point of growth, is that we're able to admit, hey, I thought this was right. I now know that it's not. Therefore, I won't teach the old thing anymore. I'm going to move on. The problem that many leaders are having is that a lot of the things that they have been willing to die for, that they put their life on the line to preach, they'll preach until, right, super heavy about it, right? A lot of the things that are untouchables, foundational, are some of the things that are now being questioned. Well, why are they being questioned? Is this just the devil running rampant, bringing up new doctrines, trying to sway people away from the truth? No, that happened already. 9 times out of 10, the thing that you already believe is the deception. It's just that we kind of have a bias to whatever it is that we got first, meaning whatever you were taught first is typically what you're going to believe the hardest, right? So it has a emotional appeal. It has an authoritative appeal. Those are two forms of persuasion that you learn about. Well, I learned about it in high school, where you have ethos and you have pathos, right? The emotional appeal and the authoritative appeal when it comes to persuasion. Well, you'll get both of those, and that's why most people are in the circumstances that they're in now. It's because of who said it as a figure or substance of authority in some capacity, right? Some capacity of authority, or you have some emotional connection to it, meaning you don't want to go against the doctrines that you were taught because you still have a good relationship with the pastor that taught it, and you're grateful because of the God that they introduced you to, even though all the information outside of that is completely false. And they're connected to it because this is where mama went. This is where grandmama went. This is where our great grandparents were. Our family laid the bricks down. We helped build this church from scratch. All of these emotional things in the way of, is it true? Right? We talk about Christ being that he is the way, the truth, and the light, and that he's supposed to be the truth. Well, you have to understand that this age of information is a move of God. It's just an uncomfortable move, right? Revival doesn't always look like people falling out and miracles happening. That's great. I like that. I do that. But that's not always what it looks like. Sometimes revival or a move of God looks like what once was covered now being uncovered. You've heard it preached multiple times that the truth will be revealed. What's done in the dark will come to light. Well, what happens when you're in an age where everything that has been done starts to come to the surface? To resist the information in that capacity is to resist the move of the God that you've been asking to move. So, yes, some of those hardcore foundational theological doctrinal beliefs that you have are wrong. It's okay. You should not be a slave to the doctrine, right? You shouldn't be a slave to theology. You shouldn't be at a point where all the information in the world, all the facts, all the truth can stand in front of you and you tell it no. That's a horrible place to be in, right? And now the other aspect of that is, like I said, when information became available, fact checking became more common. You have to get out of the idea that as a man or woman of God, whoever you are as a leader, that you cannot be corrected and that you cannot be challenged. That was true in the 80s. That was true in the 90s. That was true in the early 2000s because information was not that readily available. So the preacher was the person of authority on the topic. They were the credible source. Well, what happens when you can Google this stuff and the truth actually pops up? I know everything you Google ain't true, but like I said, you can take about an hour and do a real deep dive and get an educated answer on most things. Right? And that's also a barrier that you'll get with the older generation. See, my group, we grew up going to computer lab and we were taught how to sift through information. We were taught, hey, this is how this works. Hey, don't click on that. That's likely a scam. This is how you verify information to see if it's true, see if it's credible, see if it holds any weight. This is how you go about, we're getting taught this in elementary. So we grow up, we apply that same stuff subconsciously when we online. You're like, oh, pop-up ad. We don't click those. Why? Because as a kid, all of those are scams. Older people didn't grow up that way, right? It was just whatever the oldest person in the room said, that's truth. Our generation looks disrespectful because we're disagreeing with older people. And it just so happens that older people are currently wrong on a lot of things. I'm not even saying they're malicious, just that the information is incorrect. So there's a challenge, right? Culturally, you don't correct your elders. But what happens when your elders are wrong? When then do you just wait for them to die and then you teach against them? No, now it's an emotional attachment. And how dare you teach something granddaddy wouldn't have liked that? Oh, the pastor that's gone wouldn't have liked. Now you're being held captive by dead people. This is the real necromancy in your doctrines. I could write a book, right? You have to get over the idea of being the head honcho and the main source of information for everything. Everyone has their areas of expertise. For me, I know my lane. I stay in my lane, right? History, science, spirituality, I stay in my lane. Outside of that, I talk to the people that stay lane, right? Even within spirituality, there's things that I don't know because I'm not focused on that. There's so much to study. I study a little bit of everything, but I'm not deep diving on most things, right? I'm getting familiar with a lot. And I can be honest about that. I can say I don't currently know everything. I'm constantly learning. So what I don't know today, I might know tomorrow. Right? But that wasn't standard 30 years ago, 40 years ago, 50 years ago, 10 years ago, right? That wasn't standard. So it's a culture clash of a time in which the one with the microphone went unchallenged and the person with the microphone having to defend themselves against people that they consider lesser than themselves. Pride gets in the way because the people who grew up in an era where the person with the microphone is always right, as if they're a customer, right? They grew up and the rules changed. Now the person with the microphone isn't always right. They say it's my turn and y'all change the rules. I get that. There's a frustration in that. Let it go. The commitment that we have to have as leaders, especially those of us in ministry, is truth. Is it true? Especially when it comes to ministry, when it comes to spirituality. It's not about where did I read it. It's not about who said it. It's not about which preacher I like. It's not about any of that. Hey, if you are a spiritual person, your source is the Spirit. Did Holy Spirit say that? Did Christ tell you that, or did you read that and that's your interpretation? It's fine to have interpretations, beliefs, guesses, and all that. Theories are fine. Hypotheses are fine. Understand that all of the stuff that you get away from God doesn't carry the same backing, even if you consider yourself or are actually anointed and appointed and called, right? The individual parts don't carry the same weight. I had to go on a very specific journey that I've been on for the last 5 years. It was at the beginning of 2020. It was before the shutdown happened and everybody else started going through what they're going through, right? I remembered I had a moment of self-reflection, and I realized that there were things that I was teaching because that's what I was taught. So a preacher that I liked had said it. I read it somewhere, but I couldn't actually say God told me this. So I took some time out, and what I decided was everything that I can't say that for, I'm not teaching no more. I'm putting that on the back burner. I'm like, okay, what are the things that I've heard the audible voice of God tell me? Okay, this is my new foundation. What about everything else? I'm like, even if I deep down still believed it to be plausible or believed it to be true, I had to reverence Holy Spirit enough to say, if I hadn't been taught it yet by them, I won't push it as truth. That was hard. I grew up Baptist. I learned a lot. And it made me filter. I'm like, where did I get that from? Did mom and daddy teach me that? Did the church teach me that? Did I read that somewhere? Where did I get that from? If the answer wasn't God told me, or it came from some experience I had, I wouldn't teach it. I still live by that. So as much as y'all don't like some of the stuff I teach, understand that my integrity is the same. I don't share in public what doesn't get fact checked by Holy Spirit. Do with that as you will. Most leaders don't have that. In fact, most leaders got mad at me when I made that stance. Now they learn from me, right? They're like, hey, you were saying this, yeah, as a teenager. Now I'm an adult and you'll receive it. Weird stuff. But that's not the point. I went through a journey. So I've actually been relearning everything for the past 5 years. Intentional journey I had to go on. And I'm glad I did, because it prepared me for the age of information. So when all this new information started popping up and it's been threatening people's theologies and their foundations, now they got to do crowd control because they value control over the people more than they value the truth. That did not faze me, because I was already telling the truth, because God came before the wave of information did. Keeps me ahead of the curve, right? So leaders, what am I saying for you? Relax. It's okay. Let's start. I'll give you an invitation to start where I did. We're all already wrong. So now that we're over that, you can relax. I was wrong. You were wrong. Right? Let's just start there. Now that we're all wrong and our egos are out of the way, let's focus on finding what's true. And as long as your focus is on the truth, remember, Christ is the truth, right? If your focus is on the truth, you will find truth. The truth may not be what you want it to be, but that's the point. Truth isn't always favorable. It's not always popular. It's not always liked. It's usually the unpopular thing. But that doesn't mean to go look for all the unpopular stuff. No. Don't look to be different. Don't look for something to preach. Don't look for something to attack or to defend. You're looking at the wrong. No, look to learn the truth. And I'll even tell you this. Trust Holy Spirit more than you trust me. Trust Holy Spirit more than you trust your academia. Let Holy Spirit be the fact checker. Verify everything through Holy Spirit. Hey, Holy Spirit, what is this? Is this legit? Right? There's books that I read after having conversations with Holy Spirit that I was like, you mean to tell me this book was here all along? All this stuff is stuff you told me in private, in my private time in prayer. I'm like, this is pieces of our conversations already in a book that the church is telling me, oh, don't worry about that. And I'm like, no, everything Holy Spirit said for the most part is in this book. Okay, you're bigger than some of the book. Relax. We were all wrong. It's okay. Let's get our egos out of the way, pursue truth, and get off of your high horse. It's not your time to be authoritarian. That's going to get you replaced. No, this is your time to not lead people astray. Because you have the baton, you get to tell the truth. You don't have to continue in the doctrines that you're currently detoxing from. The same doctrines that hurt you when you were young shouldn't be the same doctrines you teach. It's one thing to share the truth, and the truth does what it does. It's another to teach as a form of revenge, to preach as a form of revenge, because now I'm the one with the microphone. I'm the one that's got it. Everyone gets to listen to me now. Everyone will do what I say. That's the wrong spirit and the wrong mentality behind the pulpit, behind a microphone, behind a webcam and a decent microphone, right? Wrong stuff behind it. The motive should be different. So yes, we're in an age where if a preacher has a scandal, he should lose his ministry. The truth is, your pastor in the 70s should have lost his for that same stuff. It just didn't happen because it was a different age. It was an age of ignorance. We don't know. We don't judge. That's the man of God. Hey, whatever he did, God don't care. That ain't true, but that's how it was back then. It ain't like that now. We're in the age of tell on them. And I like that age. Because the previous age had y'all protecting predators just because they also functioned in pulpits. No, this is an age of tell on them. And I like that. Right? If you ain't got nothing to hide, telling on people ain't a bad thing. This is an age of confrontation. That's a good thing. Why? That means problems get solved quicker because we're willing to confront the issue. What does that mean? Oh, certain generational curses don't move on another generation because we're willing to have uncomfortable conversations and confront each other, regardless of who you are. Who you are and who you mean to me actually affected the level of growth we were able to have as a community. Because you're looking at who did it rather than that it was done. Y'all get my point. Either you're going to hear me or you're not, and that's fine. I believe the people who didn't want to hear this have already left. I also don't want to beat a dead horse, so I think y'all got the point. Y'all, you have to go about ministry different in this current age. Don't look at it as your time to shine or your time to lord over people. Don't be weird, okay? Don't be weird. Let's just be great together. You have the opportunity to learn the truth and to share the truth. That is an honor. Take it for what it is. I love y'all. As usual, if you want to connect with me, caveofmystery.org. I love y'all. Until next time, y'all be blessed. Later.